Good afternoon, everyone. Most people who are joining us at this memorial are going to be joining via Zoom. So you won't necessarily be seeing them on Zoom because you're obviously with us here in the room, but know that there is a whole community of individuals, of course, who care deeply and very much wanted to be here to participate with us, who are joining us on Zoom. My role this afternoon is really just to introduce the program. I knew Dr. Hollander, but not nearly as well as all of you in the room, and certainly not nearly as well as all the speakers. I can tell you that in my few interactions that I had with Dr. Hollander in my first few years here at Toronto, incredible kindness, just such a sweet individual who very much wanted to welcome me and ensure that I was happy, settled here in Toronto. And I very much wish I had the opportunity to teach with Dr. Hollander, work with Dr. Hollander professionally, and learn from Dr. Hollander. Some of you have seen, or some of you know, that Dr. Hollander was, of course, instrumental in creating the MME course here in Toronto. I remember telling him that we turned the course into a mandatory class in which all of our students that currently come through the Bnei Akiva school system take that class as a mandatory class because of its level of importance, and it speaks towards really what Dr. Hollander represented as an educator. I have the highest degree of respect and care for anyone who devotes their life to chinuch, to education, to teaching youngsters and inspiring them, and that certainly was Dr. Hollander's life work, and it is an absolute honor to be able to participate in some small role in a memorial program dedicated to perpetuating his life, his legacy, and remembering all that he accomplished and all that he did. I'd like to call upon Rabbi Sonenberg to say a paragraph. The
words of David Melech really encapsulate the idea and the person of Dr. Hollander. Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach be'atzat resha'im u'bederech hata'im lo amad u'k'moshav leitzim lo yashav ki im b'torat Adonai chefzo u'v'torato yegeh yomam v'layla v'haya shatul al palgimayim asher piryo yiten bi'ito v'aleu lo yibol v'kol asher yaseh yatzliach lo ken haresha'im ki im kamot asher titfenu ruach al ken lo yakumu resha'im b'mishpat v'chata'im v'adat tzadikim ki yodea Adonai derech tzadikim v'derech resha'im toved.
Our next three speakers are going to be, and please come up one after another, Rabbi Shlomo, Mr. Michael Teversham, Mr. Jack Samuel. Thank you in advance for sharing thoughts and ideas. Hurrah, Bakasha.
I want to thank Rabbi Grauer and the Yeshiva for organizing such an important event. I was a very good friend of many of us, was a great teacher, and I'm not going to talk about it. I'm sure that you are going to hear from our students in the past what kind of teacher he was. He was an unusual teacher. He was Ish Eshkolot. Ish Eshkolot, the Gemara says, Ish She'akol bo, a person who knew a lot about many things in depth. It was always a pleasure, everyone here who talked to him about any topic. It was always with a great depth. Everyone that talked to him, he enriched him. If it was a student, a teacher, a principal. His knowledge about foreign languages, and as I said, he spoke 4 languages like at a native, and 4 other languages in quite expert level. History, literature, geography, everything he was כמעיין המתגבר. And the problem these days with people like this is that he was humble. This was his trademark. So many people who met him sometimes not see his greatness because he never emphasized it. He never tried to show off how great he was. So I'm not going to talk so much about, I think I want to talk about the message because I think the Shloshim, something that we have to take to our life after we knew someone. The Shiva, the Spadim are more about the person, but I want to talk about us as a community. And you know, I'm a Talmudist. A Talmudist always have to look on a sugya and to find the main question. Even if it's hard, sometimes answering a hard question might show a new light about the sugya, about the principles of the sugya. And I have a very troubling question that I hesitate a lot if to even bring it or not to the discussion. After everything that you are going to hear, the great question that I discussed not once with Ivy, was how a person could be a very successful lecturer in university, eventually was a teacher in elementary school. That's a very hard question. And this is a tzarich iyun gadol. And I know that many people might ask this question, and I think that this question explains perfectly well who was Ivy. The Gemara said about David HaMelech that his name was Adino HaEtzni. Adino HaEtzni, about David HaMelech, on one hand, you read Tehillim, you think that he's like a pale guy sitting in a basement writing their like beautiful songs to Hashem, very gentle, Adino. HaEtzni, etz, wood, rock, hard. David HaMelech had this ability to be gentle and to be hard at the same time. Isaac was gentle to everyone who knew him, but he was the wood, he was Etzni when it came to principles. You met very few people principled as Isaac. For him, listen, today excellence is like a common word. Everyone talks about excellence. I think they took it very, very seriously. He knew from his own life what excellence is. He knew that it comes with no shortcuts. It comes with a very hard work, with a true love to scholarship. And many, many times, he felt that our systems talk about excellence, but are far from excellence. I accompanied him to few interviews, and I had the opportunity to talk to principal afterwards, and I shared it with Isaac. And they were afraid. He knew what education is, and this is not good if you want to work in education. I told him many times, Isaac, what do you think is the business of education? He said, educate, teach. He said, you're wrong. We are in the business of marks and success. And he couldn't take it. Couldn't agree with something like that. And principals send someone with this kind of principle, and they're afraid of him. To be honest, they know that it's going to be like telephone calls from parents, from important people. Hey, this guy really like, hey, my son or my daughter only 85, but what does that mean? 85 is fantastic if you know what he taught. But there is a fear about it. And because he was so gentle, he never promoted himself. And he never compromised what he felt is holy and sanctified, scholarship, real scholarship. And indeed, I can tell you, because I got some of his students in elementary school, and they are on a different level, the way they think. They're Hebrew, I preach like pashut fantastic. It's a different level. Their understanding and ability to discuss things in grade 9 and 10 on a level of university, and that's what we try to do with our students. So this question is actually telling you the most about who was I did. A person who truly appreciated scholarship, and he tried to instill it in his student in the system. His will to us as a community is to strive to true excellence, not to talk about it, but really to do it. To teach our students that sometimes scholarship is not just to get the 90 or the 95 or the 100. It's really about knowing, understanding, analyzing. If this call is going to somehow be accepted and discussed, and maybe even work to the direction of having it, then we know that we respected the will of Ivy Hollander.
Okay, put on the light.
And with the light.
I'm okay. Good afternoon. Truth be told, I hadn't been in touch with Isaac for a while. Life has a way of sometimes, thank you. Life has a way of sometimes getting in the way of things, even the good things. But that's not to say he was out of mind. I might even argue that he was more top of mind in recent years than when he worked alongside me. You see, those that know me know that I'm not much of a technology guy. So when I finally figured out how Siri worked, you can imagine my excitement. That excitement was made even better with a most unexpected surprise. You see, whenever I asked Siri to call Isaac, my son, she always came back with an option that immediately put a smile on my face. Do you mean Isaac Teversham or Isaac Hollander, she'd ask. That query, each and every time, opened up a flood of fond memories. First and foremost, what a great colleague Isaac was. He was generous, supportive, kind, and wicked smart, all wrapped in a gentle calm that somehow talked you down when things, as they occasionally do in this field of ours, put you in a heightened state. Part of that was he had a great sense of humor. And by that, I mean what everyone means when they dish out that compliment. He always laughed at my jokes. Somehow his laughter, even when it was gently targeted at my expense, calmed me down. Sometimes the smile came from a memory of him just being his idiosyncratic self. How can you not be joyful at the image of Isaac arriving at school on his bike in the middle of a snowstorm, dressed like he just left Ice Station Zebra? When confronted with the bravery or the stupidity of such a decision, Isaac was nonplussed, as if navigating the treacherous roads in sub-zero weather was the equivalent of hiking into town in the French countryside to pick up the morning bread. Sometimes the smile stemmed from our extracurricular activities. Isaac was the first colleague to convince me to break my rule about socializing outside of school. On his insistence, my wife and I joined him at a downtown bar to watch some Irish music. The company, of course, was delightful, as were the tunes, but the revelation that some of my colleagues ventured south of Eglinton opened me up to many new possibilities. But more than just some memories, whenever Siri offered me her option, I was reminded how inspiring Isaac could be. You see, Isaac was a doer, not just a talker. If he had an idea for a screenplay, which he did, he wouldn't just talk about it, he would set up a schedule, roll up his sleeves, and get it done. Curiosity was all he needed. Spark an interest in Jordan, he signed up to George Brown to master the craft. Making his own wine, he's all about washing his feet in order to crush the grapes himself. Need to renovate? Of course, he's getting his own tool belt. But he's also studying everyone from Frank Lloyd Wright to Bob the Builder. Every venture was an adventure for him and one to be embraced. It's not surprising that he had his PhD. Guy knew everything about Yemen, Just ask the students at U of T. And you might be surprised that his doctorate was in geography. His knowledge of all things Yemen came from his own study and his months-long adventure to experience the country firsthand. I'm not going to lie. I struggled with the news of Isaac's passing. It was unexpected for sure. As a result, despite several attempts, I haven't reached out to his family, unsure what to say. Maybe it's because I regret not ever choosing option B when given the choice. And now, despite what Siri tells me, unavailable. But I'm confronted by the knowledge that Isaac would not want me to feel bad. He wrote, with thoughtful, rational argument, in his characteristic quiet way, let me know that it takes two to tango, that he understood that life is sometimes complicated. He would do what was necessary to make me feel better. That was his go-to, because that is what friends do. So with permission, I'm going to keep his name in my phone book. I like the juxtaposition of the two Isaacs that were in my life. I kind of wish that Dr. Hollander had met my son. I think he would have liked him. I also wish that my Isaac had met our Isaac. I know for sure that he would have felt the same way about him as we all did.
I was asked to say a few words today about Isaac Hollander, Alav Shalom, on behalf of the membership of the Or Chaim Minyan. And while it's true that Isaac and his wife Ilana were regulars and in fact beloved members for many years, for about the past 10 years, one rarely saw them here in our shul on Shabbat or Yom Tov mornings. One may have spotted Isaac here during Mincha or Mariv during the week, or perhaps on a Friday night if they were having dinner in the area, but pretty much for the past 10 years, Isaac rarely davened at Or Chaim on a Shabbos morning. So where was he? The truth is, for the longest time, I had no idea where Isaac had gone. But in May of 2016, my in-laws moved to Kensington Place retirement home on Shepherd. I decided that for the next few weeks, I'd spend Shabbos mornings with them to help them feel more settled. And that's when I discovered where Isaac Hollander had disappeared to. For the past 10 years, Isaac Hollander, Zecharnan Levracha, and Yibodah L'Chaim, Byron Shore, also from Or Chaim, faithfully ran the Shabbat morning minyan for the residents at Kensington Place. Thankfully, Byron Shore continues in that capacity. When I say ran the minyan, I mean these two did everything. They led davening, they shared the laning week in and week out. They announced the pages, assisted daveners in walkers and wheelchairs going back and forth to the bima for aliyah. They shared inspiring divrei Torah. Occasionally, they mediated the odd dispute, and so much more. That initial decision to daven at Kensington for a few weeks grew into a habit of going there for the next few months, and months turned into years. My father-in-law passed away a little over a year ago. My mother-in-law, thank God, is still with us. And Marla and I continue to daven at Kensington pretty much every Shabbos morning. So while others here can talk with authority about Dr. Hollander's incredible dedication as a Jewish educator or his outstanding scholarship, I'll try to share some thoughts from the perspective of someone who observed him week after week in his role, not so much as a religious functionary, but more a Jewish spiritual leader to a group of elderly Jewish men and women. And I want to frame my observations about Isaac's impact at Kensington through the following lens. In the very solemn Shema Kolenu prayer recited on Yom Kippur, we utter a number of earnest but rather general pleas to Hashem. We pray that God show compassion to us, that he renew our days as of old, that he perceive our thoughts, that he not cast us away. All noble sentiments, but fairly general in nature. But a little further down in that tefillah, there's a searing passage which never fails to shake me. The words have the power to strike fear in the hearts and psyches of most of us. Al tashlichenu et zikna, kichlot kochenu, al tazvenu. Do not cast us away in old age. When our strength gives out, do not forsake us. So this prayer can be read in two ways. If one is approaching old age, or maybe experiencing some of the challenges associated with aging, it could be read as a fervent plea to God that more or less says, stay with me. Yes, I may not be the young, vibrant person I once was, but please don't forsake me as I grow old. But these words can also be understood as something more than just a plea, from fearing aging mortals to our all-powerful Creator, whose age is infinite. It could be understood as an injunction, a penetrating collective scream from members of an older, more vulnerable generation to members of a younger, more carefree generation. Yes, we've grown old. Yes, we may be exhibiting the less than flattering signs of old age, but don't forget us. Don't ignore us. Don't throw us away. Extend us a measure of kindness. Show us some compassion, a little attention, maybe even some respect. We still have value. We still have worth. Al tashlichenu le'etzikna kichlot kochenu tazvenu. One day, you too may grow old. Your strength may one day diminish. Maybe your mental capacities will decline. Who knows? Our reality may one day be your destiny. Al tashlichenu. Don't throw us away. Now, I can't say for sure because I never had the conversation with Isaac. But I venture to guess that when Isaac donned those words, he internalized them as a message, a commandment, a call to arms, which directed the way in which he would relate to elderly people. Tragically, Isaac Hollander was not Zofa to grow into and experience old age like the many, many people whose lives he touched. And yet, he left such a profound impact on others in terms of the way we must engage with and cherish elderly people with the utmost dignity, respect, kindness, and even enthusiasm. Over these past 6 years, I really had the zchut to observe Dr. Hollander interact patiently with many, many elderly people on those Shabbat and Yom Tov mornings at Kensington Place. I watched him interact with a wide variety of seniors, some of them religious, some not, some brilliantly learned in Torah, some who barely knew Aleph Bet. There were residents with whom Isaac carried on conversations in Yiddish, Hebrew, English, Arabic, and French. It was inspirational to watch him do his thing. Always deferential, never condescending, always with infinite patience and that ever-present, beautiful smile of his. I watched him at Kiddush, where he took time to chat with men and women he came to know and care deeply about. And I observed him grieve the loss of many of those people with whom he had created bonds of friendship and from whom he felt he had learned so much. As lucky as those elderly residents were to have in their midst a man of Isaac's stature and education, it was always Isaac who felt honored and privileged to be among them. His reverence and respect for every person was genuine. Such was his innate modesty and humility, his kavod habrit. On Simchat Torah, Isaac and Byron led Hakafot at Kensington with unbelievable energy and joy. On Rosh Hashanah, Isaac blew the shofar, and I have to say it was spiritually uplifting to be part of his kihila. Isaac chose not to utter a word about his health challenges to the residents of Kensington. I know that he wanted to spare them any worry about his situation. So naturally, news of his passing last month was met with tremendous shock and sadness. Byron Shore initiated a beautiful project to purchase badly needed new Sidurim for Kensington in Isaac's memory. And the response thus far has been fantastic. In fact, Mizrahi is now contemplating organizing a campaign to dedicate a Sefer Torah in Israel in Isaac's memory, which is fitting because Isaac's life was a complete Kiddush Hashem, and he will be remembered as such. So though I wasn't fortunate to formally be a student of Dr. Hollander's, I feel I had the privilege to learn from an accredited professor how one should perform mitzvot bein adam lechaveiro, which is to say, it was an honor to know him. On behalf of the membership of the Or Chaim Minyan, as well as the residents of Kensington Retirement Home, I extend sincere condolences to his family. We pray for Nechama and healing for his devoted wife, Ilana, his loving daughters and son-in-law, his grandchildren, his father, mother, sister, as well as all his relatives and friends. I want to also extend our sympathies to the members of the Whites and Moscow families on your loss. You were not just Isaac's cousins. You were the loyal, loving, and vital pillar of support to Isaac and Ilana for all the years they lived in Toronto. May the precious soul of Yitzhak Meshulam ben Shmuel Perel be bound up in the bonds of life eternal. May his memory be for a blessing.
Amen.
Thank you for the.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Ihilchik. I graduated from Ohana in 2010, and I had the distinct honor of having Dr. Hollander as my teacher for grade 9 geography, grade 12 modern Middle East class. And we all know that Dr. Hollander was an extremely devoted and dedicated educator. But what really stuck out for me, especially in the grade 12 modern Middle East class, was that his classroom was a place where he really wanted us to walk away with a sense of critical thinking, which for high school education was pretty rare. His classroom was a place where we could ask questions, be taken seriously, learn how to question authority in the way that any good education should teach you to question authority. And he really emphasized our own original ideas as opposed to memorizing something from a textbook and then repeating it correctly on a test. And that really affected me and affected the way that I think, and affected the educational path I chose to take in studying humanities in university and undergrad and graduate school. I think critical thinking is probably the most important thing one can get from their education, and he really always stressed that was important, and I really respected that about him. He was also, aside from being a brilliant educator, was so kind and generous with himself and his time. He not only encouraged this sort of intellectual curiosity, but he really created a classroom environment where it was a safe space for us to do that. And he took us really seriously, and I think because of that, we took ourselves really seriously. And what a gift to give a bunch of teenagers who were just about to enter the outside world, to take ourselves and our own intellects seriously, especially as young. And I consider myself very lucky to have had him as a teacher. I want to send my sincerest condolences to his family and to the entire Bnei Akiva community. Thanks. Hi, my name.
I'm Josh Aziza. I graduated from Or Chaim in 2012, and I was privileged to have Dr. Hollander for 2 years of my high school career. First time in grade 9, and the second time in grade 12. I remember the first interaction I had with Dr. Hollander, that we had as a class with Dr. Hollander, and that was on the first day of school in grade 9. I remember, as everybody who took his class will remember, he was pretty intimidating on that first day. He expected a lot of his students. His research projects were hard, and he expected us to be able to rise to meet the challenge. I remember at the end of his class, after he finished describing his syllabus and introducing himself, he ended by saying, "I look forward to growing with you." And I remember at the time thinking that was a very unusual thing for a teacher to say. I'd never heard a teacher say that before. But became apparent over the rest of that year, and then again when I had him for Modern Middle East in grade 12, that he really meant it. He expected a lot from his students, but he was also willing to invest all the time and resources necessary to be able to help us improve. To this day, I can say that I took some really excellent research skills from him, an ability to analyze and critically think through difficult issues, both in terms of finding facts to be able to support a position that I think is correct, but also in looking at the facts in front of me and coming to a view. He didn't try to impose a view on us, but he wanted us to be able to develop these tools of analysis himself. you know, as students of Or Chaim, we're often expected to be, you know, excellent advocates for Israel. And that's a very difficult thing to do. And he was able to help us understand the foundations of what became the modern Middle East, the Hashemites and who they were, how Jordan was founded, or how Saudi Arabia was founded, or what the Sykes-Picot Agreement is. And when a lot of us went on to campus 1 and 2 years later, we were able to advocate for Israel in whatever way we did, whether it was private conversations or as volunteers with Hasbara or whatever it was. We were able to engage our opponents from what I think was a superior knowledge of the Middle East. I don't think a lot of them knew what Sykes-Picot was, or how Jordan came to be, or who the Hashemites were, or the complexities that come with various different idiosyncratic tribes. And so I'm always going to be grateful for Dr. Hollander for being able to give us those analytical tools and to be able to really school us in you know, the complexities of the Middle East and the country that we all identify with. You know, on a personal note, I said that Dr. Hollander was really willing to advance, to help us advance in our academic skills, but also intellectually and in terms of our maturity. He would often, you know, part of his classes were just, you know, discussing what he had taught with us. What does it mean? What do we think? And he was really interested in making sure that we could come away from his classes not only as students with more academic tools than when we walked in, but with more maturity and intellectual interests. He was really interested in hearing what we had to say on it. When I heard that he passed away a few weeks ago, I was pretty struck. I remember him. He was obviously a pretty young and energetic guy. But he was also somebody who I liked a lot as a teacher. And so while I am really sad that he's no longer with us, I think the consolation that I do have is that I have skills and interests, an understanding of what a good teacher is, that I can take with me forever, and that I think will be his legacy, at least to me as a student and as somebody who I know he spent a lot of time with to help improve as a student.
Hi everyone, my name is Ariella. I graduated Ohana in 2012. I had the privilege of being taught by Dr. Hollander in grade 9. He taught us geography, and in grade 12 he taught us modern Middle East. One of my favorite, most memorable moments with him was in davening one time. I believe it was Selichot season, and he actually one day just started to lead the Sephardic tune of Adon HaSelichot, one of the Selichot, and he encouraged all of the Sephardic girls to stand up and sing along with him if we knew the tune. And of course, being half Moroccan, I knew the tune, and I stood up very proudly and sang with him. It was a very memorable moment because, being a minority in a majority Ashkenazi school, we didn't really have that kind of representation until he really did that, and it you know, made us feel very seen and made us feel very proud of being Sephardic, and I truly appreciated that he did that. And honestly, it inspired my Sephardic pride throughout the years after that, and that was only one of the memories that I have of him that really stuck out. I remember him being such a kind person, a caring teacher, really cared about, you know, having his students' backs and supporting us and helping us with whatever we needed. I know that in grade 9, when my mother had a kidney transplant and We couldn't get to school. He and his wife actually helped us get to school. We carpooled with them for a little bit, and I just remember it being just such a special experience being in his presence. He was such an intelligent and kind man. I really send my deepest condolences and all of my love to his beautiful family. And thank you so much for allowing me to speak about my memories of him. Hi everyone,
Hi, my name is Sarah Ohana, and I'm an alumna from Ohana. How do we do justice to describe a tzaddik in such a short amount of time? Dr. Hollander, Zichron Levarcha, was a scholar, teacher, husband, father, and above all, a mensch. I had the immense privilege of being taught by Dr. Hollander in grade 6 at Netivot Torah, and then once again in grade 9 at Ohana. Looking back at my high school years, it was a true honor to have been taught by Dr. Hollander during those formative years. How often do we come across a brilliant person who is equally so kind, one who is so knowledgeable yet so humble? Dr. Hollander was that rare find who shared his great wisdom while also staying true to his genuine self. Of all his many virtues and qualities, his patience is one that stands out to me. As a grade 9 student, I remember being amazed by his unwavering composure for our rather rambunctious and chatty class. His calming presence provided us all with great comfort as we navigated our first year of high school and some of the tricky elements of the geography curriculum. After high school, I continued to remain in touch with Dr. Hollander from time to time and would inquire about how he was doing, especially in the later years. One of my fondest memories of Dr. Hollander was during my seminary year in Israel. I arranged a tea with Dr. Hollander and a few of my classmates who shared that similar connection to him as I did. We went on a hike with him and his family, and once again, Dr. Hollander's vast patience stood out. He took the time to explain the history of the region that we were in so passionately. He brought his love of Eretz Yisrael to life. Dr. Hollander also embraced our humor and laughter as we hiked our way through the Tiyul. I recently shared the photos from that Tiyul with my classmates, and it gave us the opportunity to reminisce about the incredible person that Dr. Hollander was. As we mark the Shloshim of Dr. Hollander, Zichron Levarcha, I want to extend my condolences to his wonderful family who I connected with on Ohana Shabbatons and school events. We will continue to remember Dr. Hollander as a kind-hearted, brilliant person who approached each individual gently, compassionately, and with utmost respect. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, my name is Sam Meyer, class of 2011, and I want to thank you for inviting me to give some brief remarks. And I want to thank everyone who had a chance to read the eulogy that I was able to write for Dr. Hollander, Zichrono Livracha. I think the most important thing that's left to be said a month after this untimely passing, especially in a forum like this, is that you as students really have to appreciate your teachers. I've been very lucky in the past few weeks to reconnect with old teachers and be able to thank them in life for all the things that they've given me. The love of education, the drive to academia, even love of making sure that you're passionate about the things you learn and the things that you teach. And I think as students, the most important thing that you can take away from this unfortunate and untimely passing of Dr. Hollander is to put an extra emphasis on the people that are putting an emphasis on your education. The lessons I learned from Dr. Hollander will continue with me my entire life. The drive towards really understanding a problem and making sure that's a problem that you care about, and only looking at problems that you care about and that you think you can make a meaningful difference in, is something very important, especially in today's day when it's very hard to focus on all the things that are coming at you. Dr. Hollander would have really, really loved to see students who did the things that they loved, because that's the things that he did. And when I look back, the things that he really loved were his students. It was GIS, was maps, was the paradigms of the Middle East. But more than the subject itself, it was teaching it on to others.
Project on the video will be Dr. Hollander's father, Professor Samuel Hollander as well. Daniel.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Gross, and I graduated from Or Chaim in 2008. And it's a privilege to be able to share some memories about Dr. Hollander, and also just to be here in person with everybody. So I had the great privilege of being a student of Dr. Hollander actually 3 times. First was for grade 8 Hebrew at Torah, and it was immediately clear when Dr. Hollander started teaching that this was a different type of teacher, somebody who had a very lively and energetic style. And the thing that I remember the most was that he taught us through songs. So he introduced us to a bunch of different, I guess, kind of classic Hebrew songs. And we went through these songs. We talked about the lyrics. We talked about the context, the history behind these songs. And I remember the songs to this day. I remember one was Gesher Bailey. One was, I don't remember the title of the song, but it was Ohana, was kind of like the chorus of it. And there's another one, Neo Seli Magimon. I don't know if there are any other students here in the audience or anybody on Zoom who remembers these, but I definitely remember them to this day, including the words. So it definitely stuck. It was a great way to learn Hebrew, but also a great way to absorb Israeli culture. Yeah, it was really clear that you brought a passion, richness, and life to the content that was being taught. It wasn't just kind of like a dry thing. He was very much engaged, and we were all very much engaged as a result. The next after that was grade 9 geography. So Dr. Hollander's geography class was really something special. Geography is a topic that most high school kids probably think about as being a boring kind of run-of-the-mill requirement class, but Dr. Hollander, as some already mentioned, had a real passion for GIS. And for those who don't know, GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems. You can think of it as kind of like a Google Maps before Google Maps existed, with many different types of data layers. So not just places to visit and traffic, but things like production information if you're looking at like an economic data set, things like this. So as a techie, this was particularly fun for me. And I remember also we had a cartography project where he actually sent us out to our respective neighborhoods to map out a real area. We had like graph paper and we had to take it all back. And I think there was a GIS connection there as well, but I don't remember now exactly. I remember also learning about population pyramids, which is like a way of kind of representing demographics in different ages, and talking about post-World War II baby boom. And then, of course, as we've already heard about quite a bit here, kind of the Dr. Hollander's masterpiece was the Modern Middle East course. So this was a course that Dr. Hollander himself had drawn up from scratch. Each part of the course was painstakingly planned. I'm sure that a lot of the depth and ingenuity was unfortunately lost on us as a bunch of rowdy grade 12 students. But I think we all still really got a lot out of it. He taught us about the 5 questions for critically analyzing any document, which I hope I remember correctly was who, what, where, when, and why. He talked about his PhD thesis, which was Jews and Muslims in Lower Yemen. That was the book that he wrote based on that, if I'm not mistaken. And also the time that he spent living in Yemen, which was absolutely amazing, and something that was totally unique as far as experiences that we had heard about from our teachers. He also talked about his book, which was called Islam Master the Basics, which, if I'm not mistaken, is for order on Amazon in Kindle format. And yeah, his unique background really made him stand out. And I would say he was even something of kind of like an enigma for us as students. It was just, he was so unique and so different from what we're used to, but in the best way possible. I remember talking about, we talked about experiences of Jewish communities in Muslim lands and things like waqf and height restrictions on Jewish buildings, things that again were kind of totally foreign concepts. But Dr. Hollander was just an expert, and he brought so much. It wasn't just like textbook knowledge for him. It was really something that he understood kind of firsthand, and that really shines through in all of his teaching. As far as kind of towards the end of the course, we had an independent study project, and for that I had chosen a somewhat controversial topic, but he encouraged it, and he really promoted free discussion rather than trying to force a certain conclusion, which I think was also something that really stood out. I think another student talked about that as well, but yeah, just there was a real open-mindedness in his classroom and a real encouragement to seek the truth and find it in your own way and analyze things using your own original perspective. And that was really something unique and something that stuck with me. The course famously culminated with the screening of Lawrence of Arabia. I'm actually surprised nobody's mentioned it yet. And it was a difficult course, but in a good way. It taught us to think critically and really broadened our perspectives. And I dug through, I had some of my old documents saved from those days. I dug through and actually found my reflection from the end of the course, and I'll share with you some words from it here about how I felt at the time. I said that my analytical skills have improved the most as I've gained the ability to look at any document and thoroughly analyze it, considering the author's motives as well as numerous other factors. Even now, I'm astonished by how much more I know about the history and current situation in the Middle East. So that was how I felt at the time, and still feel that way today. Actually, so this was the end of my experience as a student of Dr. Hollander, but my relationship with him extended beyond that. So Dr. Hollander and his wife Ihilchik kindly invited me and my wife Chloe to their home for Sukkot a few months before we got married. That was in 2015. And we learned about some of Dr. Hollander's unique hobbies that were already discussed here. Winemaking with Niagara grapes, if I'm not mistaken, and crafting jewelry with molten gold and silver. We also spoke a bit about Chloe's family and her ancestry from Baghdad, and he was kind of interested in that and asked a few more questions. And then he turned to me to ask me if I knew that my wife was descended from Iraqi Jewish aristocracy, which was news to me. He also offered me some career advice in really a kind and truly caring way. I think this was just an example of how he really cared. And it didn't matter. This was far beyond the relationship that I had with him as a student. This was really just as a kind person and a mentor. Later on, as has already been discussed here, Dr. Hollander regularly did Chazanut at Kensington, and yeah, I was very lucky to have many opportunities to be impacted by Dr. Hollander, and I really do feel his personal influence on my life and who I am today. He really invested his heart and soul into his teaching. It was not just a job, but it was really a calling and a deep passion. That was very clear. He connected with students like myself with warmth, kindness, and genuine interest. And he maintained the same connection and warmth with students long after the course was done. He was humble and approachable despite his vast knowledge, academic achievements, and extraordinary backgrounds. And he had a great sense of humor, and he will be dearly missed. I'd like to also send my deepest condolences to the family and to the entire community. Thank you.
Once again, we have the privilege now to hear from Professor Samuel Hollander, Dr. Hollander's father.
As Isaac's father, I hope you will permit me to say some words that are peculiarly personal. That's in the nature of the case. What I have to say is, in fact, a repeat of what I said at the stone laying, which took place last Friday, earlier than usual according to Ashkenazi rites. It was more or less a Yemenite form. That's why it was done so soon, and also because of the dating problem of Adar and Nisan. When Isaac told me 10 days or so before he entered hospital that he had to tell me something serious, I heard him but did not comprehend. There's a German Yiddish expression, Hören and der Hören. Hören is to hear, der Hören is to understand. All I had known till that point was that he had back problems since army days. I knew nothing about his final illness. But with the Matzeva in place, I found that nothing had changed. Isaac is safely ba'alamo, and I still cannot fathom what has happened until this day. There's a dissonance between objectivity, the fact that I know he has passed away, and subjectivity, that I can't believe it. And this dissonance is not growing weaker with time, and I suspect will remain a potent force till my own arrival at the departure gate. So be it. I believe this dissonance is healthy, not a sign of some sort of mental breakdown. After all, it is a universal phenomenon. Isaac brought to my attention before his passing, not very shortly before his passing, the passage from Bereshit, which we say actually every morning. V'yomei Avraham el na'arav, shuvu lachem po im chachmor, v'ani v'hana'ar ne'elcha ad ko v'nishtachave v'nashuvu aleichem. He says to his accompanying servants, wait here, and I'll go on my way with the Na'ar, meaning Isaac, and we will return to you, in the plural. Fact is, therefore, that Abraham didn't quite believe that he was going to carry out the act that he was commanded to do, to kill his son. Now, Rashi says that very shortly, 2 words, he had prophecy, Nebuah. He scarcely answers the question, did Abraham or did he not set out to do this unthinkable act? And if not, does it detract from the supposed merit to obey God's command, no matter what it might be? I say supposed merit because I've never been able to accept that this is could possibly have been a command that one could give any human being. But the answer we came to, Isaac and myself, was gam v'gam, both. He had the intention to slaughter his son, and at the very same time, he did not have this intention. This human dichotomy precisely applies for me in the present case, and I'm happy to find so patent a precedent. Actually, there's a practical side to my subjective sense that Isaac remains with us. I actually live with him in practice. I can give some examples there, which makes me feel that our roles are reversed. He is the father and I'm the son. 2 liters of water every day, no sugar in my coffee, the windows to be kept open in my office. He's even given me a present of 2 old people's ski sticks. And finally, as an example, until the very end, when he knew he was dying, without saying anything, he helped me completing my book, which required the computer input. I'm not so competent at computers. I'm quite good at a pencil sharpener. And in general, he gave me the advice at the very end, look after yourself. And of course, he is present in his 3 daughters and 3 grandchildren and his wife. There's a word I have here that I wish to add. And I see that Gracie Teig is present. and what I have to say is something I would like, especially for you. I mean, Sarah, according to the Midrash, collapsed and died from shock when she was told of the events before realizing that the awful act was not consummated. Happily, our dear Arlette, Isaac's mother, is unaware of Isaac's passing. Who would have imagined that Alzheimer might turn out to be a blessing?
We'd like to conclude the program with the saying of the Kalmale by Rabbi Sonenberg. Thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you for being on Zoom. Thank you to all the speakers. May he be a Melit Yosher for his entire family. May the Neshama have an Aliyah.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamtzeh Menucha Nechona, Al Kanfei Hashchina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim U'Tehorim, Kezohar Harakia Masirim, Et Nishmat Yitzchak Meshulam Ben Shmuel, Shehalach Le'olamo, בעבור שאנחנו מתפללים בעד הזכרת נשמתו, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו, לכן בעל הרחמים יסתיר בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצורה חיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום משכבו, ונאמר אמן.
Thank you.